We all have those things that just drive us crazy as coaches. So I'm going to talk about mine. I'm going to talk about three main things that like drive me crazy, that like I can't stand in my athletes, and I think they really get in the way of success. I'm not going to talk about your normal things that bother coaches. Okay, I'm not going to talk about getting in late. I'm not going to talk about skipping reps, stopping during practice, or knowing intervals, because we all know those things are super annoying, and you're just going to have to deal with it and teach your athletes how to not do that and change that standard. So this isn't going to be like a typical, I'm going to complain about the normal everyday things that a lot of you will see at your practices. I'm going to talk about the things that I truly believe get in the way of a kid reaching their full potential and what I do to help them with that. So the first one is not knowing that you are successful. This is the athlete, of course. As a coach, I hate when I'm watching an athlete have a pretty good practice, and I ask them at the end, hey, how do you think they did? They're like, oh, I think I did bad. And I'll question them more like, well, did you see how fast you were going on those hundreds or those 50s? And they're like, no, I had no idea. And it just comes down to not knowing. And I truly believe it's a powerful thing to know how you're doing and to know if that's successful or not. For example, I had a kid at practice the other day. She's on the lower end of my team, which is fine, not a big deal. But I told her, I watched her first couple of these fast efforts we were having, and she was going like 42s, 43s, like nothing really good for her. And I said, hey, I'm going to be calling out times here, and I want you to be sub 40 on every single one. And then she was like 40.1. I was like, man, that's real close. And you can see it in her eyes. Like she starts waking up a little bit. And then she was like 39, 38, 37. She even popped off at 136 and 135, I think. But at the end of the day, the last thing I said to her was, it feels good to know you did good, right? And that was the thing. Like, she kind of had this bar in her head, but not really. And she wasn't paying attention enough to even know where she was at and how she was doing. But the moment she knew that she was doing well, or even better, doing close to well or close to good, she had a great practice. From then on out, we finished great. And this is my big thing. Like, so many kids just go to practice. They're not actively engaged in the process. And I don't blame them. Like, everywhere you go, you're just told exactly how you're doing. You're told the grade. You're told what's good. You're told what's bad. You're not really taught how to, like, pay attention to how you're doing, or to even know what is good. And that's the thing about our sport, is it's so relative to the athlete that what's good for one is not good for other. What's bad for one kid is amazing for another kid. So as a coach, it's my job to make sure that athletes know they are doing well and to give them the tools to start learning how to do that on their own. Otherwise, they're just swimming through practice. And I truly believe this is one of those things that makes me a little bit different as a coach, is I want all of my athletes to feel successful. Not because they did my workout my way, but they did the workout that I wrote to the best of their ability. And a lot of people say that I want them to just do good for them, but without any tactical pieces to that. So one of the things that kills me is when an athlete's doing well and they have no idea. Or even, they're doing bad and they have no idea. Like, I just need you to know where you're at, kiddo. Good, bad, decent. I think it's a powerful thing just to know where you're at. So another thing that, this one I'm going to be careful with because it does get on my nerves, but this is definitely more for older athletes, not younger ones, is when the athlete acts like every inch of their technical success is on you, the coach. So let's say I've been talking about something and they're like, coach, can you watch me? And I'm like, all right, I'll watch. I'll give them some feedback, watch their technique, like let's say it's their kick or their catch or whatever. And then later in the workout, there's like, hey, can you watch me again? Which is fine. And I'm not against watching them. But and it goes back to like not knowing, they need to know what is good technique and what is bad technique and what they're trying to go for. And the way I fix this is, one, I keep technique very simple. And most of you should be as well. Very few of you are in the spot where if an athlete changes the angle of their pull, it's going to have a huge, like this crazy difference. It's more like, let's get the basic principles, like always having a lead arm or a consistent kick or getting your fingertips down. You want to get basic principles to your athletes, and you want to teach them those basic principles. So a big one on backstroke for us is like toes to the top kicking. You always want your toes just kind of bubbling the top of the water, right? It's very simple to understand, a really strong visual there. And a kid will ask me, how's my backstroke posture look? And I'll ask, are your toes to the top? And they'll say, I don't know, yes or no. And if they say yes, it's a great conversation, because I'm like, yeah, if your toes are up, your posture is going to be pretty good. And then just check your head after that. But if they have no idea, right, their success cannot 100% hinge on me. So my job is not like just leave them out to the wolves. I'm going to teach them the essentials for all four strokes. I'm going to teach them the core things for all four strokes, and I want them to know what's good or bad. Now, at the 13, 14 level, this is the beginning of this process. But later, it becomes, the ownership goes much more higher. So it doesn't drive me crazy as in like I'm yelling and screaming about this sort of thing. But I do want all of my athletes to know that it's not my technique, it's their technique. And every kid's technique's a little bit different. Like take breaststroke, for example. We have some kids where we really push them on distance per stroke. And we have some kids where their kick is so bad that a distance per stroke type stroke is not going to help them at all. And they need to learn how to turn up that tempo and put more rhythm into their stroke. So teaching kids how to own their technique is a big one. When a kid has no idea what's good or bad, it drives me crazy, especially an older athlete who's heard these things over and over and over again. And then the last thing that I think really gets in the way of progress is athletes who don't let their teammates do well. And this is a very fine line, but I'm going to tell you the place where I see it the most is amongst friends. And this happens all the time when you have friends who, let's say, one person's really trying to get after it that day, right? And they're going third in the lane. And the person who's going first and second, they don't really want to go. They don't want to go that way, but they also are not letting them go ahead. Or they're saying like, hey, calm down, don't go so fast on these ones. And at the younger age groups, and when I say younger age groups, I really mean like 16 and unders. I'm not even talking about little kids here. Most kids will get way better by just swimming harder the whole practice. You don't have to hit your perfect heart rate. You don't have to do this perfect effort type thing. What you really want to do is, are you trying hard enough? And that whole like, don't be a try-hard idea, I hate it. Because I know that if athlete A decides to go after it that whole practice, they are going to get better. Now, as kids get older and they start having more workouts during the week, this sort of thing could get in the way of like the overall training plan. So if you have an athlete in that situation, of course, like you guys work together on this, but so many kids need to just try harder. And when I see other athletes get in the way of one kid's progress, it drives me crazy. And the way I'll fix it is I'll move kids' lanes. Within a lane, I'll move kids around because they're so bad at doing it themselves without hurting each other's feelings. This is probably a little more towards the girls. Like I've seen so many girls not want to pass their friends because they're scared that their friend will be mad at them, which I don't think guys have as much problem with this. As far as not passing, but as far as like feeling like the other person will be mad at them, guys don't struggle with it as much. But really, it's like, let your teammate be as good as possible that day, because they might not be doing that every day. But if you're popping off one day, let them go. And another way I do this is when I see an athlete having a great day, not only do I move their lane or move them within the lane, I'll call it out. I'll be like, hey, this person's on fire today. Like, let's go. Like, I cheer that person on. I'm going to egg them on. Or I might even pull them out and say, hey, it looks like you're having a really good day, but you're letting X, Y, and Z get in your way, like probably another teammate. So do you want, and I'll talk to them, do you want me to move you lanes? Or are you going to go first? What are you going to do? Because the answer isn't, I'm going to back off, right? I'm going to go that day. So those are my three things. They all revolve around athletes knowing and taking ownership of their swimming. And when an athlete is just at practice, I really do think it starts to begin to be a waste of time as they get older, because they really got to know, they got to know what they want. They got to know how they're doing. They got to know how to do better. So if you're like me and you struggle with these things, there are some great ideas on how to get through it. If you've never thought about these things, hey, now's the time. Maybe it's that piece you're missing in your teaching, because you can tell an athlete what to do all day long. Like, you can have the workout for them, but until they fully own it and they know how they're doing technically, they know how they're doing effort-wise, and then they know when it's time to go and to take ownership and take control of that set, you're always going to be leaving something on the table. So I hope this helped. If you need more free resources, head over to betterswimcoach.com. Got some good stuff for there you as well. But let's go be better coaches. And I hope